What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Live Loud Life podcast. My name is Antonio, your host today of the Live Loud Life podcast. For those of you who are here, just thank you. I like doing these. And it's a funny thing where, so much of our lives are dependent on outcomes. And that is how I have been, I don't want to say programmed, but thought things were supposed to be. Don't do anything unless there's some sort of outcome. Forgetting that then the outcome of doing something is your own personal satisfaction, enjoyment, or happiness, or whatever that might be. And this is just another form of communicating that I find to be super enjoyful. What am I even talking about right now? I tend to enjoy a lot. Now, I will say, me personally, and this is just scheduling logistics, is I prefer to have a conversation with somebody else. Most of us don't like, just only having a conversation with myself, which is sometimes what it feels like. I'm like, literally thinking about something as I'm rattling it off. But I do have some thoughts prepared. It's not just me spitting off the top of my head, but sometimes I like how that goes, right? And that's what I wanted to talk about today is this reflection opportunity. Now, this is let's call it a recap of the last, what would that been? 2 month and a half since my last psychedelic therapy session. And the overall, things are good. And I think some people would hear that and be like, well, good doesn't sound as good as it could be. I'm real good. Let's add it to that. Like, I'm really good. And I'm going to talk a second here about me. And this is kind of weird and sometimes interesting because very rarely, I'll take that back. Some people like to talk about themselves a lot. We're not going to get into that. I don't like to talk about myself a lot. And I've been trying to talk or think about myself a lot to help me. And it has been a good reflection in the sense where there are times as I'm self-reflecting or thinking that I am thinking too much. And then I tell myself to stop and sit and just breathe. My mind will oftentimes, as I've previously shared, I'll go 7 layers deep into something. And sometimes it is a good idea, i.e., oh, this would be cool. What could that look like? This, and this. Oh, then I would need to do this, and this. And ultimately, logistically, I would have to also do this. So that's kind of good. But oftentimes that 7-layer dip, that 7 layers deep that I'm going is oftentimes completely unproductive. Where some thought would pop into my head, and it could have been something I remembered from the past or something I'm worried about in the future. You see where I'm going with this? And all of a sudden, you're playing this what if scenario about things that, the statistical chance of something like that happen is so, so rare. And I can feel it kind of get this workup in me where I'm either stressed or anxious about it, and not overly where I'm having like a panic attack, but you're like, damn, how the hell did I get there? Right? And sometimes this is a worry, whether it be financial or my health or the health of my kids or, what I'm doing as a parent. That's a big thing that Nichelle and I have been working on lately is parenting. We've been reading a great book. It's called Good Inside, and dealing with the different layers of complexity of your kids as individuals and their own unique ways of learning and understanding and how they feel. Oh, man, heavy, hard stuff. And we get into this parent guilt trip of like, oh, well, shoot, I said this or I did this wrong. And if I'm doing that consistently, and now what I'm dealing with is probably something that happened to me in my past, what's going to happen to my kids? And, that's how it just goes. But ultimately, right, the reflection of understanding this has been super helpful, because in the past, what would happen is I would spiral into all these unique situations, and then they would just get, a mind of their own or have this momentum, and that momentum would just carry further hypothetical what if scenarios that, again, some could happen, majority probably won't happen. But just the energy of that all, even if it was in a positive direction, was weighing down. And so one of the things that I have found to be super helpful in this post integration is the simple fact of reflection. And I don't know all the names, so I apologize, because this is, again, so new. Listening to different academics, philosophers, I don't even know how necessarily thought leaders how would you even classify some of these individuals? Psychologists, a lot of them are psychology, as we're trying to understand consciousness in our mind. And there's an amusing point to all of that, which I am nowhere near the understanding that some of these individuals are. But yet that then sometimes my thought is, this whole thought of why we think we know so much, but we really don't still. And that's what's so cool. And yet that was what was so daunting to me previously, is wanting to know all the answers. I needed to know the answers. What's the best for this? What's the best for this? And, we deal with this so much in our office, and I am my own worst patient. What's the best exercise for this? I don't know. Let's try some of these, right? What's the best diet? I don't know. Let's try some of these, right? And, this reflection of ultimate understanding is like, I was beating myself to pieces trying to find the answer, the this, the that, and forgetting the actual journey piece. And I used to mock and be super frustrated at the quote or the saying is, the man that enjoys the journey better than the destination will go farther than the man who loves the destination. Because I was always like, well, I need more of this, I need more of that, presenting a sense of lack of what I don't have. And, I need to be more financially stable. I need to be smarter. I need to understand this more. And that was putting so much pressure and stress on me, from not even of a performance standpoint, but like an understanding standpoint. And then honestly, one of the most relieving things that I experienced in the first session is this understanding is like, there is no answer. And depending on, there's so many factors that influence where you are right now. And to determine that you need to do this, this, or this to be in a different place, you have to take so many things into consideration. And so what I have experienced over the last little bit is this constant battle of letting go. And I still don't got it. I still don't have it. I'm still working on it. And I still feel like, and I was just sharing this with Michelle the other day, I still feel like there's this thing, like I'm so close to jumping off and soaring or doing whatever, but there's still this hesitation or reservation. And a lot of this is because this is unknown. This is so unnatural to me. Even just saying it, I'm like, really? This is coming out of me? Which is comical. It just seems so unnatural to who I was and what I believed before and my lack of understanding. And ultimately, now from a lyric from a song that's just like I just play over and over, and I apologize, never looked up the right pronunciation, but Satsang and Trevor Hall. I want to know more than I know right now, and trying to just drive this curiosity of there's so much I don't understand. There's so much we don't understand, and I won't ever know. And I gotta just let that shit go for sure, that I will ever fully understand or comprehend something to its greatest ability. And just being more open about the unknown and learning. And this is something that I've been listening to a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work of the uncomfortableness of what the unknown is. No one, that's why we live at times back around. That's why we oftentimes live. This is not my thoughts. This is, again, I'm reiterating what I've been gathering and learning, and I'm trying to give credit where credit is due. Is living in the past and the present, and the past and the future, right? Is we remember the past well. So that's easy to live into. And it's very specific because it already happened. And yet we are then trying to create this predictable future. If we just keep doing what we're doing, it's pretty much going to repeat itself. And it's the today of the kind of this unknown of just being like, man, anything can happen, and being okay with that, and being open to not knowing everything. And so my Antonio, 4 months ago, whenever this kind of started, if I would have assessed myself of what I've been doing over the last few months, I would have honestly been like, nah, I take that back. I'm trying to be soft on myself here. Like, he's a slacker. He's not doing all the things that he should be doing based on what I, previously thought my goals or wants were. And these last few months, I'm still not there. There is no there. I'm still not where I would comfortably want to be from like a grounded standpoint, but I'm good. I'm really good. And I feel good about that. And I've been taking more time for me, and I'm trying to be the better client, patient, student that I would tell somebody else to do. I encourage, I coach, I communicate with others being like, hey, you can't pour from an empty cup. Guilty, right? Run myself in the ground. I've shared it before. I had stress hives. Like, I was putting myself through everything, cortisol levels high, or everything. I was burning myself to the ground to just, get an inch further, and everything was forcing. It was forcing. And I still don't know how, but I'm learning how to sit and think and breathe, and sometimes not think, but create feelings about who I want to be and what that feeling would be, so that I can better assimilate myself now in this present future to more of who I want to be, think I could be, desire to be, and desire and wants maybe aren't the right words indicating that I am not enough now, but more of just this potential of who I could be, right? Because I think that was one of the themes that I came across, is this untapped potential, whatever that meant. Is I knew I'm not living the best that I could live. And then it's where it gets super interesting is like, all right, well, now rubber hits the road. What are the things that I'm doing? What are my actions and behaviors that are currently now that are not helping me be the person that I could be, right? What are the repeatable actions that I'm doing that are usually then, my past defining myself or programming myself or whatever, however you want to describe it, is we are creatures of habit. So what are my habits that I am doing that are not in alignment or in congruency with who I know I can be? And those are the tough ones. Because some of these things you just do, right? And for me, a lot of it is diet. And part of this diet thing is like, while we look from the inside, if we do like a blood plan or something, I could polish some things off. Some of these are genetic as far as like, triglyceride and certain cholesterol levels and things like that, but argumentatively can still be changed dramatically. But from if you look at like what I eat on a week, I kind of encourage this 80-20 rule, but now it's what's getting interesting. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. That's what you were doing previously. But if you want to get here and you're here, that might not work. And one of the biggest things for me, which I have struggled for a while, is, and this comes back in tune to this kind of pouring from an empty cup of just doing the things that you need to do to make you the best person that you could be, is this, how do I want to say it? Not slack, but this kind of forgiveness around just kind of eating whatever. And that's kind of how I've always lived my life as like a young teenage boy. Shit, you could put as much food as you want on me and I could eat it and I would still be relatively lean, thinking like, oh, I'm just eating, I'm still lean, I'm probably doing okay. And maybe it's just 36 talking to me, and things are changing. But ultimately it comes down to like a discipline. And I was thinking about this today, and Jocko Willink says this over and over again, disciplines equals freedoms, but it's the no's in life that give you the yeses. By saying no to all these things, you get, if you want to say it, better yeses. You get more opportunities, right? And I'm saying this out loud, and that's part of what this just communication is me saying the things that I know to somebody else. And then it's always a self-reflection. And I'm going to say two things on that real quick to tie it all together and wrap up is oftentimes, I'm saying real quick before it flies out of my head, the things that you don't want to do is the thing that you need to do. And the things that you oftentimes either criticize or I don't know if you want to say criticize or judge or look at somebody else are oftentimes an inward reflection of what you're actually struggling with. Okay, let me put those together. Is there's so many times, again, like this self-reflection of me being the not the ideal client is when I am talking with somebody about those changes or doing things, and I'm just simply sitting in my head, I'm like, I'm talking to this other person who's not me, but I'm talking to me. I'm literally saying like, well, you know you need to do this. Like, if you want to lose weight, you got to eat better. You know you need to do this. And it's so funny is like, even when I'm getting mad at my kids about something, I'm like, you're not like, what was an example I just had is I'm like, hey, I don't understand why you're so frustrated or something like that. Like, it seems like we're super frustrated, a whole bunch of things. And all this stuff is making you super anxious and you're really short with your brother or sister, your parent or your mom and dad and I, and all this stuff. And as I'm saying it, I'm like, I'm talking to one of my kiddos, but I'm talking to me, like everything I'm getting mad at them about, I'm not mad at myself about, but I know it's something I need to change. And so that outward expression of my frustration to somebody else is just what I'm frustrated with in myself. And it's funny when you actually start like thinking about that and understanding again how just like a second nature a program is to lash out or reach out or take it out, or those all sound so negative, but have that expression towards somebody else rather than yourself. And so I just want you to think about that, is oftentimes the thoughts you have towards somebody else or something that maybe pops in your head because of something else, is sit on that and see like, is that actually what I'm frustrated with them about? Or is that something I'm frustrated with myself about? Which is a super interesting, just thought exercise to do. And I apologize, when I ran on that note, I completely forgot what that part 2 was. I forgot my notes over at the table. Give me a second here. I was slowing down. I was rambling there. The inward reflection of, the things that you know you need to do. I believe it was that is being just, honest and accountable with yourself. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And so over these past few months, there's still so many things that I struggle and wrestle with that are unconscious, just things that pop into my head that I'm working on just letting go, just like the clouds come in and out. But there's things that I know behaviorally, systematically, habitual, whatever it is when we're trying to change ourselves, you can't be doing the same things that you're doing, right? If you want to change yourself, you need to change so much of what you're actually trying to do. And when we're going through that process, we don't expect you to change everything at once. You really can't do it all at once. And if anything, it's going to be overwhelming. And the product of success, I saw this, Alex Hormozy, who is an entrepreneur, business educator, that magic pill we talked about is everyone wants the one thing that'll help them just break through and be huge. And ultimately all the good businesses, they basically take a lot of little things and they change them over time. So as you're consistently refining that, that's where you see that ultimate growth and product of who you are and who you want to be. And that's what I'm trying to, project myself as is like, okay, well, what are some small little changes that I consistently hack away at and make these small adaptable changes to make me the best version of me that I can be. And that's the last few months has been more of a reflection point where I don't, like a lot of my goals and ambitions, they're still there, but it's now coming with a different lens and a different focus and more forgiveness. Cause ultimately is like, I felt like I wasn't good enough if my goals weren't accomplished within the next year. Everyone talks about, financial freedom within 6 months or all those things. And that could, if that's ultimately what my goal was, I could definitely set my mind to that and accomplish it. But there's other things in life right now that are more important than that. One of which is family, which I was honestly losing and not present for because of how I was mentally acting and behaving, if you want to call it that. And so these last few months have just been an awesome reflection of what's actually important right now. Where do I actually want to be? How do I want to define my goals and my timelines from an outside perspective? But more importantly, how do I want to define, maybe my goals of who I am and mile markers of goals of consistency rather than outcome, goals of the process of what I need to do habitually to obtain this ultimate potential of what I am capable of, which has no limit, which is scary and kind of awesome at the same time, because if I'm not at my full potential, which is ultimately growth, am I not? Yeah, I don't know. I just had a thought to that I need to sit on for a little bit, but and there's no judgment against that, but my new goal is the process of consistency and creating the habits around some of those. And the diet, that's what I was coming back to. And ultimately one of those is, which for me, which many of us have around the New Year's, is this diet aspect. And oftentimes the doing of the diet, which, many would argue is not the right way to think about this, but it's the saying of the no's that give you the better yeses, right? It's, for me, I know it's this sense of eating better, cleaner, whatever you want to call it, is not necessarily like the extreme health benefits of what it gives you, but it's the process of saying no to all that other stuff, which will ultimately give me so much more in return from not only a healthier body, potentially a better physique as I cut out some of the fluff, then the fluff comes off me, but also the discipline in nature of doing that, which then creates better discipline, habits, and behavior for other things. And it's been a crazy couple weeks and months after this, but I'm okay with not being okay and fully where I want to be, whereas before I wasn't. And I encourage so many of you who are listening to this to sit on some of that and understand that it's okay to not be where you want to be because we're in the process. And where you want to be, that's just one more data point along this whole long trajectory line, right? Thinking that, like, I used to just think, I guess, whatever retirement or financial freedom would be. And then it's like, okay, well, I guess, 2.0 life starts where I can do all this other stuff, but like, why can't I do a lot of that now? And so ultimately, there's a lot to sit on. There's a lot to reflect on. And I apologize as this rant or, long-winded thought at times seems ill-defined and going, but that's part of what it is we're trying to just think through these things and grab onto a few things that we find to be beneficial for us and ideally let go of a lot of other things. And as I say no to certain things, letting go, I'm going to gain more, right? As you sit and reflect, you're going to better understand what is actually constructive to you and your thought process and your mindset or your body, whatever that is, and what is not, that you can let go, right? And understanding the journey and the process is a constant level of refining, polishing, building, destruction. Nope, built that up. That was not what I needed. Tear that shit down, move on, whatever, and just keep going to that next thing. and stop reflecting so much on all the things I've done wrong, you've done wrong, we've done wrong. Come at it with a understanding of learning from those mistakes. Don't just keep doing the same shit twice, which I've been guilty of. A mistake done twice is a habit. I can't remember who said that, or is a choice. Sorry, a mistake done twice is a choice. We've all been guilty of that before. But not judging myself. It's like, all right, I'm clearly making a choice. Why am I making this choice? I don't want to be making this choice. Is there something that's driving me to make this choice, or can I simply stop making this choice and move on to something else? Right. So thanks for sticking with me. This has been a fun learning process. I'm real good. I hope you are too. If you're not, there's resources. Biggest thing I would say, just ask someone who's close to you and just be like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Do you have any insight? And those that care about you will help you find potential resources, either online or nearby, that can help you. And it does not only have to be through the psychedelic therapy. I mean, I know I've shared so much about the benefits for me. It's not for everybody, and that's okay. Not everybody's done it and they've improved. So we know there's multiple roads to Rome, and it doesn't have to be just this way, but ultimately there's got to be work done still. It's not just like we just sit back and shit's going to change. And that's the one thing that I've realized more and more is like I've had to work harder at this stuff than I ever have before, but it's bearing immediate fruits right now. And I can only, hope and imagine what the fruits of my labor of work now are going to be in the future.